Tonight, somewhere in the world, a clock strikes sunset. A hand reaches for water, stops, pulls back. The fast continues, and millions do the same thing at the exact same moment, across continents, across cultures, at the exact same time. In the coming weeks, millions of people will go to bed hungry, not because they have nothing, but because they chose it, deliberately, intentionally, as an act of will. And most people don't understand what's really happening, because Ramadan and the Christian season of Lent are not just religious traditions. They are two ancient ways to break the same inner problem, two different calendars, two different rituals, but the same battle. And once you see it, fasting changes completely. Here's the part almost nobody says. Fasting is not mainly sacrifice. Fasting is confrontation with yourself, with the parts of you that run on autopilot, with the cravings you've been feeding for so long you forgot they weren't essential. In the next few minutes, I'll show you 3 things: what Ramadan is at its core, what Lent is at its core, why both fight the same inner battle, and how you can use this season, even if you're not strictly religious, to break free from what's controlling you. This is the desert. Ramadan is a month of conscious return to God, not through celebration, through absence. From sunrise to sunset, nothing enters the body. No food, no water, no distractions. For 30 days, the rhythm of life changes, and hunger becomes the discipline of the ego. The daily rhythm becomes sacred. Before dawn, you eat. The sun rises and the fast begins. Midday arrives. The body weakens. The mind sharpens. Afternoon stretches long, and then finally, sunset. The call to prayer sounds, and you break the fast. A single date, a sip of water, a moment of recognition. What you had all along, food, water, comfort, it was never just yours. It was always a gift, and fasting makes you remember that. But Ramadan is more than physical hunger. It's spiritual recalibration. It's the act of saying no to the body so the soul can say yes to something higher. The Quran describes fasting as a path toward taqwa, God consciousness, an awareness that you are not the center, that something greater holds you, that your appetites do not define you. And then comes a special night, Laylat al-Qadr, the night of power, a single night, hidden somewhere in the last 10 days of Ramadan, a night worth more than 1,000 months, when heaven feels closer, when prayers feel different, when the boundary between you and God thins, when the fast becomes depth. Ramadan is not just fasting. Ramadan is an inner reset, a spiritual detox, a month where you strip away the noise and remember what you've been covering up with consumption. This is the desert. 40 days before Easter, Christians enter Lent, not as celebration, as preparation, as a journey into the wilderness. The desert is not just a place, it's a symbol of stripping away, of returning to what matters, of being alone with God when all the distractions fall away. Lent rests on 3 pillars: prayer, fasting, giving, not self-improvement, not New Year's resolutions, inner turning, a deliberate movement toward God and away from the noise. You give up something, not to prove strength, but to create space. Chocolate, social media, alcohol, comfort, whatever keeps you distracted from your own heart, whatever you reach for when you don't want to feel what's underneath. And here's why it matters. Jesus fasted 40 days in the wilderness, not because he was weak, because the wilderness is where clarity lives, where noise stops, where temptation reveals itself, where you face what you've been avoiding. After his baptism, Jesus was led into the desert by the Spirit. 40 days, no food, no comfort, just silence and hunger and the voice of the enemy whispering lies. And at the end of those 40 days, Jesus emerged, not weaker, stronger, because he had faced himself, and he had won. Lent begins with ashes, Ash Wednesday, a mark on the forehead. A priest or pastor traces a cross in ash and says, "Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return." Not depressing, clarifying, a reminder that you are mortal, that your time here is limited, that the things you're clinging to won't last, and neither will you. So the question becomes, what are you building your life on? What are you feeding? What are you serving? Lent forces you to answer. And now comes the moment where Ramadan and Lent stop looking like two religions and start looking like one principle. Both seasons target the same inner system, the system that keeps you addicted, the system that tells you more will satisfy, the system that runs your life from the shadows while you think you're in control. And that system has a name, the ego, or in other words, the untrained self. The part of you that believes it's entitled to comfort, that demands instant gratification, that cannot sit in silence, that needs constant stimulation, constant validation, constant feeding. Fasting breaks that system, not by fighting it directly, but by starving it, by removing what it depends on. And when the ego stops getting what it wants, it screams, it throws tantrums, it tells you you're being extreme, that this is unnecessary, that you deserve better, and that's when you know it's working. Here's what happens when you fast. When food disappears, what remains is what normally controls you. Restlessness, irritation, distraction, the need for control, the compulsion to fill every silence with noise, the urge to reach for your phone the moment boredom arrives. Fasting exposes your automatic patterns, the things you reach for without thinking, the comforts you hide behind, the crutches you didn't know you were leaning on. And when those crutches are removed, you see yourself clearly, maybe for the first time. Fasting makes silence possible again. The body becomes quieter. The constant hum of digestion, of craving, of needing, it fades. And suddenly, you hear what you've been drowning out. Your own thoughts, your real desires, the questions you've been avoiding, the pain you've been medicating with food, with entertainment, with busyness. And here's the gift. Fasting makes gratitude real. A sip of water becomes more than a detail. It becomes a gift, a miracle. Something you would have ignored yesterday becomes something you receive today with both hands. Because when you've gone without, you remember that nothing was ever guaranteed. Everything is grace. Many people say fasting is spiritual, and yes, but it's also neurological. Scientists have been studying fasting for years, and they found something strange. When you fast, your brain literally rewires. The constant demand for more, now, instant, the dopamine-driven cycle that keeps you scrolling, snacking, shopping. It quiets down, the noise decreases, focus rises, self-control strengthens, overstimulation drops. Your brain enters a state called neuroplasticity. Old patterns weaken, new ones can form. The pathways that were running your life on autopilot start to fade, and suddenly, you have space to choose again. Fasting is the moment your brain learns not to demand instantly. It remembers how to wait, how to be still, how to tolerate discomfort without immediately reaching for relief. And that ability to sit with discomfort without reacting is the foundation of every meaningful change you'll ever make. And this is only the beginning, because fasting is not just about food. You can fast from anything. Social media, constant noise, the news cycle, endless opinions, the need to always be right, the compulsion to check your phone every 5 minutes. Wait, because now it gets personal. What if you chose one thing to fast from? Not as a rule, not as punishment, as an invitation, as an experiment. 1 hour of silence in the morning, 1 day without screens, 1 week without complaining, 1 month without the thing you reach for when you don't want to feel. And that's the real test. Not whether you can do it, but what you discover when you do. What rises to the surface when you stop numbing it. What clarity emerges when you stop drowning it out. What strength you find when you stop feeding the weakness. Because fasting reveals. It doesn't just remove, it uncovers. It shows you what's underneath. And most people are terrified of that, so they never fast. They keep feeding, they keep consuming, they keep running. and they never discover what they're capable of. This is the desert. 2 paths, 2 calendars, 2 traditions, and yet the same movement. The human being enters a kind of desert voluntarily, not because they hate pleasure, but because they refuse to be controlled by it.